Minister in the House, Leda Hull. I want to welcome Minister to the House, and we're dealing with item 3, Education Welfare Amendment Bill 2015, second stage. The question is, the bill be now read a second time, and I call on Senator Mary Moran to speak. You have 10 minutes, and your seconder has 6.
Thank you, Lassie Hirlet. I'd like to welcome Minister O'Sullivan to the House this afternoon, and I believe we're to be joined also by Minister Riley, who will also contribute to the bill which I've proposed and is before the House this evening, entitled the Education Welfare Amendment Bill 2015. The purpose of the bill is to amend the Education Welfare Act of 2000 to increase the minimum school age from 16 to 17 and to allow vocational apprenticeships, the primary purpose of which are educational, to count as school attendance. The bill also proposes to amend the Protection of Young Persons Employment Act to change the minimum age of employment for young people from 16 to 17. I hope it's not a sign of things to come, but as I was preparing my speech for this afternoon's debate, my computer blew up, so you'll excuse me if I'm going from one to the other. It literally blew up while I was typing. Not that there was anything explosive in it now, but so the bill is comprised of 5 sections. Section 1 deals with the amendment of the Education Welfare Act of 2000. Section 2, the amendment of the Protection of Young Persons Employment Act. Section 3, vocational apprenticeships. Section 4, the commencement, and Section 5, short title and collective citation. As I said, I'm delighted that both Ministers O'Sullivan and Riley will contribute to the debate, because while primary responsibility for the implementation and any amendment of the Education Welfare Act 2000 lies with the Minister for Children and Youth Affairs, the Minister for Education and Skills retains responsibility for a number of schools and further education and training related provisions. And while it is Minister Riley's department who have responsibility for setting the school leaving age, the proposals contained in the bill also impact on the policy remit of the Department of Education and Skills, and also on jobs, enterprise and innovation. So I think it's a good all-rounder, that it's cross-departmental, and I think that's what we need to see. We actually need to see more of this. So I'm delighted that both ministers are coming. As you said, Minister, 2 for the price of 1. As spokesperson for education and as a person with many years' experience in the classroom, seeing young people leave school at a young age with no formal qualification, I'm hopeful that this bill will improve the lives of young people by ensuring that they have a better education and or qualification on leaving, and that was the purpose behind my drafting this bill. In 1972, the school leaving age increased from 14 to 15 years of age. The Education Welfare Bill of 2000 increased again to 16 in 2000, or completion of 3 years of secondary education. Whichever is the later. Thankfully, I've noticed a decrease, as I'm sure all of us have, in the number of early school years in leavers in latter years. In fact, Ireland's early school leaver rate has dropped from 9.7% in 2012 to 6.9% in 2014, which is well below the EU average of 11.2% for 2014. When all the EU countries alone are considered, Ireland ranks 10th out of 28 and is below our target under the Europe 2020 strategy. So I think we are well on course, and I think we'll all have seen this. I know myself in recent years, the amount of students that have actually stayed on, and we can see that are staying on to Leaving Cert. The figures for Junior Cert released by the Department of Education's analysis of school retention rates among state-aided schools last February noted that from the numbers who enrolled in 2008 as first-time enrolments, 96.8 sat the Junior Cert, which is phenomenal. I think it's brilliant in 2011 or 12, and 90% sat the Leaving Cert in 13 or 14. The figures are also increasing in DEIS schools in recent years, with its current level at 82.1. So we can still see the discrepancy that there is between DEIS and non-DEIS schools. But these figures are indeed encouraging, and I think it's important that we do more to ensure that our young people, particularly those in DEIS schools, get every opportunity and encouragement to stay at school until at least the age of 17. In addition, the report notes that the true education retention figures comparable to upper secondary level education is probably higher, as the report does not not have any analysis of students who pursue different educational pathways, which can provide qualifications equivalent to that of the Leaving Cert on the National Framework of Qualification. For example, some apprenticeships, PLC courses and so on can attain level 4 or level 5 on the NFQ, which is the same as Leaving Cert but not included on the retention analysis, and I know that my colleague will address the issue of apprenticeships. But I would just like to mention O'Fee College from my own hometown of Dundalk, who are very supportive for young people who have left school early. Indeed, recently they have introduced a level 4 course for people who left school early and who wish to come back to education. So I think it's brilliant to see colleges and institutes around that are doing so much to encourage people back into education. Also, I think DKIT, which is one of the leading institutes of technology in the country, who are offering opportunities to further study for people who have completed apprenticeships, or ways for them who have done these qualifications to move on and move up the scale to a level 6 or level 7 further qualification. I think it's also very appropriate to note that of the almost 3,000 apprenticeships registered with SOLAS in 2014, only 1% of them was 16. 4% of them were aged 17, 17 were 18, 19% of them were 19, 15% of them were 20, and 44% of them were over 22. So only 1% of those were 16. So I think it is good to see that they are, that they are staying on. 25% of these apprentices had completed Junior Cert, and 68% had done Leaving Cert, with 7% having other qualifications. Figures indicate that the majority of dropout at second level, though, occurs between 5th and 6th year, or within the last 2 years in school, with 3.5% leaving school around this time. And it is probably the most vulnerable time, where they're kind of growing up and they're saying, right, what are my chances out there? So it's important, I think, around this age to try and hold on to them in school. About 2% leave school directly after Junior Cert. The Department of Education undertook a report on early school leavers from post-primary schools, pupils enrolled in 2009-10 but not in 2010-11, entitled Early Leavers, School Leavers, What Next?, which showed that a considerable proportion entered other forms of education or training. Almost 70% had moved into PLC courses, FOSS courses, education or training outside the state, youth reach or private educational institutions. We need, I think, to address the reasons for early school leaving. A school leaver survey was conducted by the Department of Education in 2007. I know that that was 8 years ago, but the reasons for leaving then, I think, are still pertinent today. 62% of those that left school early cited school factors as the reason, 60% on economic or work factors, 14% on family factors, and 5% on health factors. A further study by the ESRI in 2010 on the dynamics of early school leaving noted that those who left school early did so because they felt rejected by the school, reporting a lack of encouragement from the school, or in some cases being expelled from school. Some felt rejection of the school, a dislike of school, of rules, of teachers or other students, or indeed feelings of underachievement. Labour market opportunities were also cited, as were personal issues, and sometimes a combination of all four. Now, I think even since 2010, schools today, definitely around the country, are doing what they can to improve and to encourage students to stay there. And I think that when we have the new Junior Cert as well, syllabuses or syllabi will be even more interesting and can relate to the person's individuality and the person's interest. And I think that will be another positive step forward. Thankfully, the vast majority of our students today sail through school with no problems and complete their education at 17 or 18. However, it is the small minority that need encouragement, and I believe that we have many resources and second chance opportunities like Youth Reach, community training centres and apprenticeships. Thank you. I would like to note also that in relation to traveller culture, in my experience, I've known students who have left school immediately after the Junior Cert or on their 16th birthday in order to marry. I've spoken before of one particular student that I had who was particularly gifted, I felt, at school, but who never returned after her junior cert, and within 2 years she had 3 very small children. We need to ensure that every pathway for these people is available for them to return on education, and when they make the decision to leave, that the doorway is always open for them to come back into education. I think it's also something I note that I have met students who left school at 16 who kind of reported, can't wait to get out of here, can't wait to leave at 16, and then you meet them at 19 and I remember one girl particularly working in a shop, and she said, I just wish I had never left, I wish I'd stayed at school. And it's getting the knowledge out to them and getting the information, because a lot of them don't know that the opportunities are out there for them to enter back into education. In conclusion, I'd like to thank the Minister for coming to the House. I know that there are issues surrounding certain aspects of the bill, but I am confident that these can be agreed without difficulty. I commend the bill to the House.
Yeah, and you have 4 minutes later to...
Pardon?
You have 4 minutes later at the
Thank
end.
you.
Yeah.